The first day of training had begun before the sun even thought of rising, and already the air was thick with sweat, nerves, and the quiet dread that hung in the chests of every recruit. The platoon had assembled on the gravel lot, shivering against the sharp bite of dawn, boots lined in a row and faces trying to look tougher than they felt. Some still smelled faintly of civilian life, a cologne, soap, or even last night's cigarettes, but the uniformity of their new fatigues was meant to erase those differences. At the far end of the line, limping slightly as she adjusted her pack, was Private Rachel Carson. She was lean, almost wiry, with sharp eyes that seemed older than the 22 years she claimed. Her left leg dragged, barely noticeable at first, until she had to quick-step to catch up. Some recruits gave her a second look, others politely ignored it. But one didn't. Private Ethan Lasker, 2 bodies down from her, smirked when he noticed the limp. He leaned toward the guy beside him and muttered, "Great, guess we're carrying her dead weight the whole time." Rachel heard him. She always heard. She didn't flinch or glare or respond. She simply tightened the strap on her pack and stared ahead, her expression unreadable. The drill sergeant barked them into silence, his voice like gravel scraping metal. "Today you learn what your body can take. We'll see who belongs here and who doesn't. Platoon, fall in." We run. The pack run. It wasn't just a jog around the base. It was a grueling test meant to shred lungs and pound legs. 8 miles through uneven terrain, packs loaded heavy enough to make shoulders burn. Veterans swore it was where pretenders broke. The recruits knew it too. The whistle blew. The platoon surged forward in a clumsy rhythm, boots crunching gravel, breaths puffing wide into the cold. Lasker bounded with easy confidence, grinning as he pulled ahead of a few stragglers. He kept glancing at Rachel, expecting her to lag behind, waiting for his prediction to prove true. She ran steady, her limp giving her stride an awkward cadence, but she didn't falter. By the first mile, sweat slicked brows and chests heaved, packs rubbed raw against spines. The terrain shifted to dirt and stones, inclines that stole breath. The platoon stretched thin, strong runners pulling ahead while weaker ones gasped behind. Rachel stayed mid-pack, conserving. Every step jarred her left knee, but she knew this pain, had lived with it for years. What was new was the weight on her back, the test in her lungs. Still, she breathed evenly, eyes locked on the horizon. Lasker noticed and scoffed under his breath. "She's gonna drop any second." The second mile broke 2 recruits. They stumbled off to the side, retching, chests heaving. The sergeant barked at them but kept the rest moving. Rachel adjusted her breathing, felt the rhythm of her limp fall into sync with the thud of boots around her. She found her groove. By the 4th mile, Lasker's smirk had faded. His legs burned more than he expected, sweat plastering his shirt to his back. He had been sure Rachel would be behind him by now, maybe walking, maybe collapsed. Instead, when he risked a glance, he saw her a few strides ahead, face calm, breath steady, eyes still forward. "What the hell?" he muttered, pushing harder. Rachel didn't speed up. She didn't need to. She simply kept moving, stride after awkward stride, never slowing, never stopping. The terrain shifted again, uphill this time, steep enough that some recruits cursed aloud. Lasker powered his way up, lungs searing, but at the top he bent slightly, hands twitching toward his thighs. When he looked sideways, Rachel was cresting the hill beside him, still calm, still steady. At mile 6, recruits were dropping like flies, staggering, wheezing, some with legs cramping so badly they had to hobble. The platoon was no longer a formation but a scattered trail of struggling bodies. The sergeant's shouts echoed over them, demanding strength they didn't think they had. And then Rachel moved. Something in her changed after the 6th mile. Her pace quickened, her limp no longer a hindrance but a rhythm she used to propel herself forward. One by one, she passed the recruits ahead. Some tried to keep up, startled by her sudden surge, but she glided past them, breath measured, gaze unbroken. Lasker tried to match her stride, but his body rebelled. His chest was a furnace, his calves screamed, and his pack felt like lead. Still, his pride refused to let her go. He clenched his teeth, pushed harder, and nearly tripped over his own exhaustion. Rachel didn't look at him. She didn't look at anyone. She only ran. By mile 7, she was at the front, The entire platoon trailed behind, some shocked, others too focused on their own survival to notice. Lasker saw it, though. He saw her outrun every last one of them, saw the Limp he had mocked carry her further than he could dream, and in that moment, something inside him cracked, not anger, not humiliation, but awe. She finished the run alone at the front, boots pounding across the final stretch, breath finally ragged but still moving, always moving. When she crossed the line, the sergeant's whistle cut the air. Platoon, halt. One by one, recruits stumbled across, collapsing in the dirt, hands on knees, gasping, groaning. Lasker stumbled in near the middle, bent double, lungs burning so hot he thought he'd never draw a clean breath again. He lifted his head just enough to see Rachel standing tall, chest heaving but face composed, sweat streaking her temples. The sergeant strode to her first. He said nothing for a long moment, just looked her over, then gave a short, sharp nod. That's how it's done. Some recruits turned to stare, a few whispered. Lasker only stared at the dirt, shame burning hotter than his exhaustion. When dismissal finally came and the recruits dragged themselves toward the barracks, Lasker found himself slowing near Rachel. She was walking with that same limp, as if the run hadn't burned it out of her, but it looked different now, not weakness, but proof of something stronger than anyone else carried. He opened his mouth, closed it, then forced the words out. "Hey, Carson." She turned her head slightly. He hesitated, then muttered, "Didn't think you a broken bar, you know. Beat all of us." Her eyes flicked over him, unreadable. Then she said quietly, "I didn't come here to be thought about, I came here to be here." And she kept walking. That night, as the barracks lights dimmed and recruits groaned about sore muscles and blistered feet, Lasker lay awake staring at the ceiling. He thought of her stride, her silence, the way she pulled ahead when everyone else faltered. He thought of how he'd mocked her limp, certain it marked her weakness, when in truth it had been the mark of her strength. In the weeks that followed, the platoon learned who Rachel Carson really was. She never boasted, never reminded anyone of that run. She simply trained harder than anyone else, her limp always there, her endurance unshakable. She carried the same weight they did, bore the same punishments, but where others complained, she stayed silent. Where others broke, she did not. The recruits began to notice, they began to respect, and slowly, even Lasker found himself following her lead, pushing harder, complaining less, finding strength where he hadn't thought he had any. Months later, when graduation finally came, the platoon marched across the parade ground in perfect formation, heads high, boots striking the earth in unison. Families cheered from the sidelines, cameras flashing, names shouted. Lasker's parents waved, pride swelling in their eyes, but his own eyes sought only one figure at the far side of the field, Rachel, still limping, still steady, still unbroken. He remembered that first run, the smirk on his face, the words he had spat under his breath. He remembered the moment she outran them all, and as they marched past the reviewing stand, he realized that some lessons were carved not by lectures, not by punishments, but by the sheer force of example. Rachel never once mentioned his mocking words. She never needed to, because every time her limp struck the ground and carried her forward, it said everything, and no one in that platoon ever scoffed again.